Okay, where is the mic? Here you go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Magic Arena Run. Today, we're actually going to go over a tournament I recently joined. If you follow me on Magic Arena MTG, I will put a link to the Facebook group down below. A fellow mod, Onik Islikaplan. Apologies if I got the pronunciation wrong. Has been hosting a bunch of tournaments as of late. One of these tournaments was a Historic Artisan Tournament. I joined it for the heck of it. It was really interesting, and I'll go over all the different games. Obviously by the time you're watching this video, the tournament has already ended. But I'm gonna start with the deck list of what I ran. We'll go through all the games in relatively quick succession. I'll be splicing it all together. And I'll be talking about my final thoughts about this deck in particular. And first off, we'll start with that. This is Historic Artisan Blink. So its primary focus is on this guy over here, Soul Herder. So the idea is we're going to be abusing all them enter the battlefield triggers. So first with Soul Herder, when a creature is exiled from the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on Soul Herder. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile another target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So what's the best way to abuse this ability? So first we'll start with the top end. I'm running Azorius. The normal version of this deck is Esper. White, blue, black. And it's a little bit of a spoiler of what we're going to run into. But the primary idea is that you want to take advantage of all these extra card advantage effects like Elite Guard Mage, gain 3 life, draw a card whenever it enters the battlefield, so really nice target to blink. We have a few copies of Spire Patrol. This one's mainly for lockdown, but it's also quite good. We tested a few copies of Falcon Abomination. Otherwise, everything else is in the 2-drop slots. We also have 4 copies of Traven Expector. I tested a few copies of Cloistered Gargoyle. In hindsight, this is a bit of a mistake. It's super underpowered for what it does. I would probably rather have more copies of Dawnbringer Cleric or Lumbering Light Shield. Light Shield's fine. It does slow down decks that want to be on curve, but it's probably still not the best effect. I probably should be looking for an ETB effect in blue to go with this. We run 4 copies of Spirited Companion because best doggo draws a card. Few copies of Ambitious Farmhand because we do want to hit a lot of mana in this deck, oddly enough. Also Coven, kind of helpful as well. We have Fading Hopes, Juari Disruption, and Touch the Spirit Realm as both essentially defensive abilities. The Channel ability and Touch the Spirit Realm really good as a way to give us an extra blink effect. Off the sideboard, we have a few copies of Momentary Blink. In case if our opponent runs into more removal, this is a very good defensive ability. A few copies of Dovin's Veto. We have 2 copies of Jubilant Skybonder because most of our best creatures are flying, so having a way to passively protect them is nice. I ran with a transformational sideboard where if I found it too slow, I would just if I felt like I needed to go all in aggro, I just dumped the Watcher of the Spheres, I dumped the Empyrean Eagles. I tried to win by going over the top. In hindsight, there were a lot of better options. I really did not need this. Although Watcher of the Spheres, kind of helped with the cost reduction, so it was. So if I actually had more flyers with ETB abilities, it would have been a very good call here. That said, that is pretty much all I could say about this deck, and. We will go to the gameplay videos shortly, so stay tuned. Okay, so we are now starting with the very first match. I was having a little bit of jitters, but of course I had to say hi. A bit unfortunate our opponent had to take a very early mulligan, but opponent did have a really aggressive start for mono green. What turned out to be wolves. I was expecting it to be regular aggro, but we were able to hold up quite a bit of defense. Actually, our opponent did have a little bit more than wolves, but I kind of named it wolves based on all the other cards I eventually started seeing. We did get our early Cloister Gargoyle effects and whatnot. I was very apprehensive about dropping some of my better creatures. No Soul Herder quite yet. But having the double touch the Spirit Realm as part of a backup plan, we just knew that we have plenty of time to wait, so that's exactly what we're gonna do. I kind of thought of playing the Spire Patrol, but without any actual blink effects, there was no reason for me to go for it quite yet. So it was just a game of attrition. I was kind of waiting to see if my opponent would run out of gas eventually. Opponent did eventually empty out everything, but we were not in any real danger yet. We did actually have the time to crack the clue, and we did find our Soul Herder. And now the game truly began. It's not just enough to play Soul Herder, you really want to play Soul Herder with some sort of protection. So holding up the Fading Hope, holding up the Touch the Spirit Realm, those were really good things. We were perfectly fine taking the damage in this case, because we knew that if our opponent did not have any really big surprise, we could have the lock here. That said, there were some moments like, oh, maybe I should be thinking about protecting stuff, but having most of our threats be flyers, aside from just some growing Soul Herder to ridiculous sizes, that was some kind of an important point. Now our opponent was going to start running us over with Hound Tamer. We were kind of counting on that, but let's see here. We definitely needed to encourage our opponent to use up mana in different ways. Basically, force our opponent to have the plays. Because we had the interaction. Yeah, we just bounced we just bounced their big guy. They have a big 3/4 wolf, but nothing to really be scared of, especially when we can start drawing cards ad infinitum. The Elite Guard Mage was gonna take over at this point. Again, I would note that our opponent did concede here, but I'm starting to see some of the cracks. Like the Cloistered Gargoyles were awfully weak. I put in some of the Jubilant Skybonders because I expected our opponent to actually start having removal. I ended up cutting the Dawnbringer Clerics here because our opponent did not seem to be running that as a matchup. There's no Ranger class to be afraid of in Historic Artisan. That said, with our opponent being on the play this time, there was a bit of pressure on us. Yeah, we had the early Traven Inspector. We had the Soul Herder. This is where we started seeing all the tap lands come to bite us. Opponent does run Tenacious P very early. But we are literally a turn behind at all points. The Paxong Pup here was going to kind of threaten to take it over. As you can see, we really had little to no interaction at this point. At least we could just start cracking clues here. But we were about to get overrun by this big wolf. Also, having additional 5/4s for 4 doesn't quite help. We just ran out the Elite Guard Mage because we were kind of desperate to hit something, anything. But at this point, we were not catching up at that point. This was... I kind of played Soul Herder and held up Momentary Blink. It's literally just to buy as much time as possible, but writing's kind of on the wall without removal of our own. It's actually going to be a very interesting team in coming in. In fact, when we do get to the very last game, we're going to see how relevant that bit is. But yeah, we did fire off the Momentary Blink. We kind of had to we're going shields down for that respect. Our opponent definitely had some sort of response. Yep, opponent does take out the Soul Herder, so... And we could kind of buy some more time with what we have, but realistically, we would be... Actually, don't know why I swung with that one. The correct play was to just chump block at that point. Yes, but the Hound Tamer was going to mess up everything already. Snakeskin Veil closes it out against us. Now it's our turn to be on the play. Now that we knew what our opponent had, yeah, we correctly took out the Cloistered Gargoyles. We took out some ambitious farm hands because we kind of want to get into aggro. This is probably the only time I put in Empyrean Eagle, but to be honest, it was never relevant. This one, Super Sketch, we were kind of leaning on Spirit Companion to draw us into more stuff, but Okay, that was actually a very good one. Opponent did have the Outland Liberator, but if our opponent was going to sack their werewolf to take out Doggo, one, that sounds awfully cruel, but it was a legit plan there. So now we had a bit of a decision to make. I was actually going to hold up. So first we threatened to. Okay, so we actually had a bit of multiple interaction here. I did not expect the duel of dominance. I was actually expecting our opponent to maybe sack their werewolf. Opponent was going to end up sacking their werewolf, but we would be able. No, we actually just ended up protecting Soul Herder here. Opponent decides to let it go. We have Soul Herder number 2. Let's see if our opponent has to kind of start over again. But at this point we actually had a wealth of. We did have a wealth of riches here. Spire Patrol just to lock down their mana wolf. Get in a nice cheap quick hit. Thankfully, no. There was no reason for us to blink Spire Patrol again, so we just went for even more card draw. Essentially, it was all this cheap card draw that was going to get us all the way here, and so was Dub. And I was already thinking if I wanted to run the second Soul Herder or something, it would really be it really would look really powerful when I can start double barreling. Also, Fading Hope to blank their other removal spell, kind of the weak spot of green. But now that we got that, we just had double barreled everything. It is gonna and because of the way Soul Herder's triggers worded, we could easily get out of these guys could easily get out of hand. So we were kind of hoping for it. Watcher of the Spires. This one is just there to give us some mana reduction, though kind of unnecessary at this point. But here we can see that this is where the flyers come in. And also watch them Soul Herders grow. So I ended up choosing to keep the mana lockdown because I was gonna take the 6 damage. It wasn't a real threat at that point. Now we had many choices. I just went for yet another Elite Guard Mage. I might draw into a land. Did not, but Jubilant Skybonder to make sure our opponent was going to have to pay for their removal and pay dearly. But there we go. We just had an Air Force and our opponent did not. So now we go to our next match. This one was against Rakdos Sacrifice. This one is actually a taste of things to come. So we decided to fire off the Lumbering Light Shields first. I was thinking I could just do Ambitious Farmhand if I did not draw a land. We did manage to lock out their Deadly Disputes, so they were not going to fire it off right away. But turn 1 Squirrel, turn 2 Anvil. Not looking very good for us right now. Opponent was super willing to just. In hindsight, I probably should have blocked. There was no reason for me to take that free 1 damage. Opponent decides to bin the Squirrel. Now we had to start hitting all our other land drops, but interesting combo. I really wish that we had the cheap way of taking out artifacts in white that was part of a creature package. So making the Fatal Push a little bit more expensive, not exactly relevant when everything we have is on the cheap end anyway. Also, opponents starting to really churn out the advantage with Ichor Wellspring. In fact, we're at the point where everyone is churning out a lot of advantage. I was thinking of using Touch the Spirit Realm. Actually, because the Onicult Anvil was tapped, I probably should have. And now that the Mayhem Devil is out, we're gonna start going out of hand. Though opponent decided to go for us in this case. Oh, that's because they had the Fatal Push. So now but now at least we had a very decent target for Touch the Spirit Realm. Still a bit shy in mana. You would think that with 4 mana sources we would be happy and all. No, the Blink deck is really hungry. Various Beetle lands. didn't really miss the Cloister Gargoyle. In fact, the Cloister Gargoyle's kind of mistake was deciding between Light Shield and Abomination. I probably could have ditched the Cleric. I did not see any recursion quite yet. Yeah, but with that, I probably wish I kept the Abomination. Being able to have a Flyers sail through our opponent would have been a very big deal. Also, this attack was super sketch, but with no real way of getting anything, getting any high powered stuff on our end. Everything we had was at 1 power. I was willing to trade the ambitious farmhands. Now we did have a reset switch with Fading Hope. Opponent is still churning out advantage despite the number of cards they played. Now we just went for the block blink. Having another blinker was fine, but unfortunately, with our opponent having multiple constructs, we were not getting out of this anytime soon. Again, we did not see any reanimation effects, so we were just going to crash in with all them light shields. But that said, this was a very uphill battle. We only had Fading Hope. And now we had another Mayhem Devil to stare down. In hindsight, I probably should have blinked Mayhem Devil before opponent activated Ravenous Squirrel. But writing was kind of on the wall at this point. Opponent could have sacked the treasures, they opted not to. Yeah, we were just churning through our deck as much as we can. We did not hit any Soul Herder. We didn't hit any of our... The most we hit was just the 1 Spire Patrol, but it wasn't looking impressive. At this point, I was really just trying to see how much damage I can punch through, but to no avail. Oh. So at this... So, and yeah, you could watch our life total tick down little by little while them squirrels grew larger and larger. I threw in the towel at that point. We had to put in the Dovin's Vetoes. I decided to go for the Skybonders as additional defense. We always cut the Cloister Gargoyles. Yeah, that was a really big mistake in deck building. Cut the Dawnblade Bringer Clerics in this case. We kind of went around. I added a few Watchers just to get virtual mana in the form of discounts for some of our bigger effects. I was actually very curious with our opponent naming green. I did not see a single spell that actually required green mana. But Forest Beetle, yeah, we discarded one Dovin's Veto. We probably could have discarded the Momentary Blink here. But now this is us trying to get the expensive form of card advantage. Opponent does have Implement of Malice. So they did crack it, so we did end up discarding Momentary Blink there. Now we decided to hold it up. The worst case scenario is we could hold up mana for these clues. Although we were in a very precarious state, a Mayhem Devil. Yeah, this forced us to just sack multiple clues. Although we did have an inkling that there would be some sort of oven-like effect, so we held up the Dovin's Veto. Although I will note that I probably should have cast Jawari Disruption, not Dovin's Veto. But still, our Soul Herder was going to grow larger. The clue tokens were going to be a little bit awkward here. Opponent does land their Ravenous Squirrel. We do get a pass here. Unfortunately, opponent wants to take out the Traben Inspector. I was actually kind of fine with that. They would just do a sack. Unfortunately, yeah, and I figured, you know what? At that point, I'll just sack it all. Now this is where we get the nice beef. Elite Guard Mage starts drawing us into more cards. I probably should have just played Evolving Wilds at that rate, but this is where we got our engine going. Opponent would need really hard removal, at least in the form of Fatal Push. It was doable. Opponent going on the Desperate Deadly Dispute plan. Although they did have the treasure token, they could just, yeah, they take out Elite Guard Mage that way. So, and the Dovid's Veto came a little bit late, I might add. Thankfully, we had the backup Elite Guard Mage there, so no. Opponent, I'm dumping into Soul Herder, so I threw in the Thinking for a while. Actually, I threw in the Thinking because I had to run an errand. I had to put something on the fridge downstairs. By the time I got... So, enjoy the next 10 seconds of me running down, dropping things. I hope our... So, we were running down a little bit of rope there. But in seriousness, I was really thinking. I could easily go... It was either Spirited Companion and Light Shield or Elite Guard Mage at that point. In the end, as soon as I got back, it was going to be Elite Guard Mage. At least that's what I remember. No, I went for the double plan. I needed to have an idea what they had. Also, so that's exactly what I did. So yeah, memory can be fuzzy. Though now there are two effects, so their Deadly Dispute was kind of pricey. Now they're stacking all the damage. We do decide to counter the Deadly Dispute. The last thing we want to do is give them more cards. And yeah, if they had another Dispute effect, it would have been brutal. As it is, they did not. They're just going to swing with the 5. We could easily take it at this point. Definitely not cracking the clue. Now we hit a second Soul Herder, but we're dropping Spirited Companion first. The extra lands really help here a lot. Now, we do go for the swing first because we actually had an interesting trick here. And it's actually an onboard trick. We go for the Momentary Blink. Comes back, generates a +1/+1. Then we're going to see if our opponent had some sort of effect. No, it was just sacking the Ravenous. But that was actually a trade I was willing to take, especially since I had another Soul Herder. So they had to go Trail of Crumbs to now get their card advantage back. I was actually kind of thinking if I wanted to crack now or wait for our Jawari Disruption to actually be useful. I decided to hold on for a bit. Though they were just hitting lands at that point, I could always wait for the clue. There was no rush for it. Now we decide to go for Ambitious Farmhand here. Take out the last of our lands. Yeah. Oh, I usually swing first just to see if they have some sort of effect. Now, this one is pretty much us going through only because we had the success of taking out most of our opponent's board. And now it looked like our opponent ran out of gas at this point, so we just went Watcher. We kind of started punching with everything at this point. We had Touch the Spirit Realm as backup, so we had some protection there. And yeah, opponent just going for even more Trail of Crumbs. It looks so that does explain why they needed green mana. I think in hindsight, I probably would have found other ways of advantage, but let's be fair. Trail of Crumbs was an all-star back in Standard in the day. So opponent did leave up space for an Onicult Anvil. That was the time I went Coven. I just decided to unload everything at this point. Swing with everything. Opponent was just going to... They ended up sacking their Anvil, but... Yeah, the timing was off. You needed to sack on your own turn if you wanted the 1/1 construct. And yeah, Soul Herder Chain. And with a 40 life cushion, our opponent was going to need the board wipe. That's going to be a little bit of foreshadowing right there. But now that we're on to game 3, I could not think of any other changes. I probably should have brought in the third Ambitious Farmhand because we would be playing on the draw. The last thing we wanted to do was stumble on land drops. That said, our opponent did take quite a while in their sideboarding, and but still, it was a very interesting run at this point. I was feeling a little bit confident, but in the but I was still concerned that our opponent had a very very powerful card draw engine. I was happy to keep this one turn 2 companion, turn 3 soul herder, but at this point we're gonna watch as our opponent decides to take us apart. They had shambling gas, so that's why I ended up playing lumbering light shield. It does, in hindsight, it's good as a very big for having a big backside, but it's not actually. But it does. It only slows down our opponent for a little bit, not so much. I also probably could have held up Jawari Disruption, but slowing down the Mayhem Devil was not so bad either, especially when we had touched the Spirit Realm. So I was actually feeling confident at this point, but this was actually the beginning of the end here. Opponent did get their second Mayhem Devil down. They were starting to swing in. So I had to decide between playing the Soul Herder and holding up the Veto. I held up Veto instead. That was probably still the correct move. We would have no way of protecting Soul Herder and whatnot. Opponent snipes poor doggo, but we were going to counter the Deadly Dispute. There is no way we're giving them 2 cards. Oh, they actually went for Traben. They did have another Deadly Dispute, so it turned from an absolutely bad situation to a relatively bad situation. Now, this is the part we had no choice. We literally had only Soul Herder and a Clue token. Opponent could easily sack anything at any time, so we decided to sack right now. And yeah, I got the notification that we would have one more match. I was trying to type in my response there. A little bit awkward here and there. I actually ended up typing up the response in Discord. Though having to do this in the middle of the match, well, another Ravenous Squirrel. These squirrels were going to start chaining. It's kind of similar to the Soul Herder chain when you get exile effects with multiple Soul Herders out here. It's multiple sack effects with the squirrels. We decide to go for taking out the Mayhem Devil once and for all, because that's pretty much the one thing that would shotgun barrel our Soul Herder. And actually, yeah, but unfortunately, we did not have enough backside. The Traben Inspector failed, so we did not get to take out Mayhem Devil. I decided to drop the Spirited Companion. There was a very good... And we played the Soul Herder here. If our opponent was going to sack the Squirrel just to take out Soul Herder, so be it. They decided not to, so... But they revealed an Onicult Anvil. The chain was... The chain was going through. Yeah, I just had to... Yeah, I had to leave a note right there. Welcome to the world of having to play. To be fair for our opponent, I was probably gonna lose this match no matter what. As you can see, between Witch's Oven, Onicult Anvil, one large Squirrel Boy, and we were just desperately cracking clues at this point. But yeah, the Fading Hope would have helped to reset the Squirrel. And the Elite Guard Mage was a nice touch as well. But yeah, we lose the Traben Inspector, so still no way of taking out the Mayhem Devil. And now there are 2 of them. And that's where it ended for us. Opponent just chaining all of them sacrifice effects. It's actually really powerful. It's actually and so yeah, I had to concede there. There was really no out for me in that one. So I was now feeling a bit down, but I had one more match to go. So I kept this one just off the promise of a 1-2-3 play. Opponent does drop the Blossoming Sands, so say hi. Yeah, having all these lands come into play tapped was a big disadvantage because we were kind of playing from behind. Opponent landing the Naturalist already started to scare me because I knew we were so behind. The Fading Hopes were a godsend though. So we just needed to hold up at least one Fading Hope for the time being. Take note that that Paradise Druid was going to be a very big issue as we start seeing our opponent dump rune after rune on top of a creature that we could not exactly target. Oh, and did I not mention that this is historic? So that said, our opponent decided to go for the 5/5 lifelink. So I was concerned our opponent might have a hexproof effect here, but yeah, but our opponent did not. So we unfortunately had to bin the guard mage. We were short on lands. Lands is always going to be the issue. We drew the land, which is actually perfect here because it did allow us to hold up Fading Hope again. Offer the trade for Paradise Druid that obviously no one's going to take. Also, it was pretty much a free shot. We would blink the Traven Inspector anyway. We are probably going to throw one of them Inspectors under the bus. Opponent had the Banishing Light. That is why Fading Hope is so important here. I had to decide if I wanted to hold it, but no, we need those blink effects now. I did not want to just risk relying everything on the second Soul Herder. And as you can see, it was going to be a very important point here. So we play Soul Herder again, offer the trade again. We actually could... I had to choose between dropping the Light Shield or cracking a clue. I decided to go for the crack a clue plan. And yeah, it turns out our opponent had more banishing style effects. So it's a good thing we did not just throw away the first Soul Herder right away. So now we had a second Soul Herder. But well, this time no free swings, but we were going to get a lot of card draws. It's interesting also that our opponent was, well, to be fair, it was a 2-1. Now it was a 3-2. Now it was a 9-8. And things went to heck at this point. So Spire Patrol wasn't going to lock down Paradise Druid anytime soon, but we could use it to lock down Michiko. Which we will take as a good consolation prize there. Opponent does have a Sheltering Light, but oh yeah, they just cast a Sheltering Light in case I had some effect. We were just gonna blink the Light Shield again, see what else could we make more expensive. We did make the Rune of Sustenance more expensive, which was okay. Yeah, this is the time we started throwing Traven Inspectors under the bus. Opponent had a very high life total at this point. It was really, really scary. Opponent had Tameo Safekeeping, so yeah, we were looking for anything that could possibly deal with this, or at least something that could keep the advantage locked in. So we decided to blink the first time we decided to blink the Gargoyle, primarily to give us a token that we could throw under the bus here. Opponent does have another Banishing Light, takes out yet another Soul Herder, has a Sky Marcher Aspirant. Opponent now staring us down with a really big life total. Definitely played the farmhand so that we could get even more lands down. So yeah, it was still really precarious. We were just one trample effect away from ruining our day. The only benefit we had was our opponent barely had any card draw. But now we were about to give our opponent 23 more life. Our opponent was very close to the triple digits in life. So I had to choose between activating Farmhand and just holding to crack clues. I probably was just gonna hold to crack clues. It was tempting to complete the dungeon, but to be fair, I was probably gonna just throw the Cloister Gargoyle or Spirited Companion under the bus. I would have loved if opponents swung with Jukai Naturalist, but now we had to dig and dig for as many answers as possible, and we dug into Dawnbringer Cleric. At that point, I was actually relieved. I actually forgot I still had two of those. Now, I was wondering, how was this interface going to work? I decided to just go for the Soul Herder for now. Go touch the Spirit Realm, take out the Portrait once and for all. play the farmhand, get our last planes out. Well, we still had other planes, but get as many of those out as possible. Now we started feeling confident to hit up in the air. And now all of a sudden, that 1110 hexproof creature was not so scary anymore. And our opponent was virtually empty-handed. They would have to replay Sentinel's Eyes over and over again, but we could replay Dawnbringer Cleric over and over again. We ended up just giving up one Spire Patrol. Opponent, as a certain famous person said, I could do this all day. So, but we decided to keep it safe. We kept it with our flyer. We kept it to our flyers. I actually wanted to keep hitting the Sentinel's Eyes. I wanted to encourage them to snipe their graveyard. Yeah, the Johari Disruption not so great there. They finally hit their trample effect way too late. But yeah, and our opponent conceded there. That said, the Dovin's Vetoes came in, Momentary Blinks came in, Cloister Gargoyles came out, Falcon Abominations came out. We put the Sky, and we also took the Light Shields out. We added a few Watchers again just to keep things cheap and all. Still waiting for our opponent to decide there. This was a very keepable hand. The Dovin's Veto was nice. So was the Dawnbringer Cleric early on. So, and that's what we did. Do what Dawnbringer Cleric does best. Opponent did have the Touch of Spirit Realm to take it out. I really wish I had the full playset of Dawnbringer Clerics just between the main board and the sideboard. The full playset was pretty much the correct move there. So now the Jubilant Skybonder came down. Opponent stacking everything, leaving themselves vulnerable to a Fading Hope. I was actually expecting them to have a hexproof effect then. But at that point, now it was our turn to hit back. Opponent was just left with Sky Marcher Aspirants. They only had one shot at giving it Vigilance, but 3/2 was not exactly going to do it. And with the one Soul Herder, with Dovin Veto's back up, writing was kind of on the wall at the point. I would say that green-white was really good. It functioned similar to an Aura's build, but you really missed on the card draw effect. Our opponent really conceded right there after the second Fading Hope. Yeah, it's very different when you don't have curiosity effects, you don't have curious obsession, you don't have staggering insight. We decided to keep this one. We had our colors. We had the yeah. So our opponent did lead. So here our opponent led off on the mere zombies, really leading on the zombies. Although that was weird. I was very no. Our opponent could have played that at Flash. I think they just wanted to get extra zombies out. But yeah, the timing was off. That said, we were able to lock down their Falcon Abomination, and they had a nice Shambling Gas too, and another Shambling Gas. They really unloaded very early. So now we had a few interesting choices here, but we decided to just lock down one of their small guns. I was kind of willing to trade for the Blade Stitch Cab. Although thank goodness Priest of Haunted Edge, there is a delay before they can knock it off. It gave us time to flip the Ambitious Farmhand, which that's exactly what we did. And we decided to just swing up top. Now the Seasoned Qatar was going to become a very big nuisance. Opponent had to decide what to take out using their Priest of Haunted Edge. They were also kind of flooded at this point. They did kind of different when you don't have the Deadly Disputes to supplement card draw. There's the Falcon Abomination. They swing with everything. I had decided to take for now. that gave us the 3-2-1 that was very needed to flip farmhand. So once again on the board, we didn't exactly have a use for the zombie token. Actually, now that I think of it, I only kept the Falcon Abomination just for the haste. But now we were off to the races here. Spirit, but then we hit this wonderful chain: Spirited Companion, Lumbering Light Shield, and with that we actually bought ourselves the turn that we needed. And there you go, opponent conceded there. Not so sure what to add here. I ended up just going for blink effects and Jubilant Skybonders because we did see that our opponent had quite a bit of removal. I probably could have cut the Dawnbringer Clerics here, but this is zombies. This one was more likely to have reanimation style effects. Also, the extra life is kind of neat, so kept it there. Opponent had to take a mulligan. And yeah, we decided to take one turn off. There was a chance that we might be able to get our opponent with the Jwari Disruption. So we decided to hold it off right there. Opponent swings. Does pay us off with the Jwari Disruption. I actually did not expect Grim Draugr there. Now we play our other Jwari Disruption. And yeah, we decided to go with Traven Inspector so we could hold up the Fading Hope. Opponent does have an Avalanche Caller, so it's actually more of a snow build than a zombies build. It was still mostly zombies for the... We decided to just bounce the Avalanche Caller back. 4/4 Hex... 4/4 lands we can't interact with or was going to be a real pain. Still missing our Soul Herder effect, but we were buying a lot of time. Yeah, we figured let's just blink the... Yeah, let's just blink that because it can only activate sorcery speed. There we go. We hit our Soul Herder. Definitely not swinging into Shambling Gas. Opponent did have the Falcon Abomination, but our Jwari Disruption got it there. Opponent conceded at that point. It looks like they ran out of removal there. And with that, we finally hit ourselves into the top 8. Had to take an early mulligan. Was a little bit concerned with the matchup, especially when you start staring up against a Soul Warden. And Soul Warden into Pridemate also just as scary, especially when you're caught behind. I was thinking of holding up for a counter magic, but no, we really have to get our land drops as soon as possible. We need to hit that Soul Herder, which is a bit awkward considering our opponent was gaining tons of life and beating us down with an 8/8 to Johnny's Pridemate. Thankfully, we had to touch the Spirit Realm to go first, and our opponent was tapped out, so they could not shelter it down. Actually, they could play it as a land, but they were still holding up. They were expecting interaction, which actually would be correct. Opponent did have a Banishing Light of their own to banish or touch the Spirit Realm, and now it begins again. So we had a bit of a decision to make here. We decided to go for Spirited Companion first, look for a land. Unfortunately, ETB tap, but it was fine. Opponent was now really swimming in life, and I figured, nah, let's go to the next game. So the blinks came in. Imperial Eagle was never gonna take a shot in. Yeah, we just went in for the... Yeah, we just pretty much went for blinks and vetoes at that point. Because the biggest threat they could have for us was their own exile effects. We decided to go for the Glacial Plains first. We could still do Fading Hope if needed. I decided not to at this one. Now I decided to do it for this one because there's a difference in the amount of life that would be gained that way. We finally did hit a Soul Herder. I decided to go touch the Spirit Realm first under Leonin Vanguard. The Healer's Hawk, it was always going to be +1 life, and only when it connected. Opponents seemed to be stuck on lands there, though they did have another Vanguard. But without any of the big effects, I was not too worried yet. I was getting worried though. Thankfully, we had an Elite Guard Mage to start drawing us into more stuff. Opponent had the passive system effect, but this is where us not drawing Soul Herder earlier was a big boon. So now we play Soul Herder. Yeah, they gain their 1 life, but we do get to reset the Elite Guard Mage. And we hold up Dovin's Veto for for the expected Banishing Light effect. Unfortunately, it was a Celestial Unicorn. So now we're staring up against another big threat. Thankfully, we had the Spire Patrol to lock that down. And we can start beating down a little bit in the air. We had to decide if we wanted to just lock down another creature, but we decided to just go for more life. Opponent does drop Daxos. I felt it was a bit of a win more here. There were plenty of incidental life gain effects already, but it's still a big. It has a big boot, so I would say it wasn't such a bad addition after all. In fact, I would say it's probably better than a lot of other cards people would add. So we decided to go for yet another Soul Herder. I was still holding up Dovin's Veto, but now we got to Daisy Chain Spire Patrol Elite Guard Mage. And the worst thing that could happen was they just gained 2 life from every cycle. I'm sorry. Yeah, they just gained 2 life from every cycle. We got 2+2/+2 counters and a slew of effects on our end of the line. Opponent goes for another Pacifism. Yeah, this time we're going to Dovin's Veto. I could have just used Soul Herder there, but I decided, no, we'll save it for another time. So we decided to go for the attack first. Most likely what we were going to do was just Farmhand and company. Opponent chump blocks with the Healer's Hawk, so I was actually concerned there. Yeah, I had to fight this one effect. In hindsight, I probably would not have done that because now we had the Celestial Unicorn to worry about. Although I did have a few ambitious Farmhands to throw under the bus for the time being. But yeah, the correct play there was... I did not expect that much interaction, but that was a very good set of interaction there. But now we had to touch the Spirit Realm to nuke their Celestial Unicorn. We actually could afford to take all the damage, so we just take it for the time being. And touch the Spirit Realm. Locks out their Unicorn. Play another ambitious Farmhand. Yeah, start thinning the deck as much as possible. And this time we swing with the 8/8 just because it was highly unlikely our opponent had the destroy target attacking creature. Actually, I should have been concerned about that. Seal away was a thing. But now we go on to game 3. We added the Jubilant Skybonders now that we saw our opponent was packing more removal. We cut down on a few of the blink effects. And we cut down the Traben Inspectors at this point. We were not going to win off the back of 1/2s. We were going to need bigger stuff. But yet again, me keeping the sketchy hands. Opponent had Alsades this time, so it is that is very interesting interaction. It is very protective. Alsade into Alsades, quite good. So, yeah. So we go for the planes because we might end up having to play the Jubilant Skybonder. I'm so glad to trade the Alsade for my 1/1 there. We drop the Jubilant Skybonder. Should make it harder for opponent to target our stuff in the future. That said, our opponent going on the tank means they did not have much in the way of interaction. Later on in Discord, our opponent would tell us that yeah, the cards they did not get the right cards this time, which really made sense there. Opponent had the Circle of Confinement. I dropped the Fading Hope, which was perfectly fine. It just reset it, gave us another shot again. Yeah, we were taking damage, but it wasn't too brutal yet. This time we play Watcher into Elite Guard Mage. I could have also played Touch the Spirit Realm, but what we needed was to start setting up our aggro chain. Opponent did drop another Alseid of Life's bounty. They were gaining quite a bit of life. Thankfully, there was no Righteous Valkyrie in his Artisan. I decided to just chump block. No, I decided to just take. I was considering just blocking with everything, but remember our opponent had to fight this one, so it wasn't really worth it. This time we dropped the Soul Herder. We hold up touch the Spirit Realm. I was tempted to play the Falcon Abomination, but I decided to wait on it a bit. I was pretty sure our opponent had some sort of interaction. we got the Jwari Disruption in the... So there we go. There was the Banishing Light. So we played the Touch the Spirit Realm. We played in Channel. Our opponent assumes that we were going for their Banishing Light, but that's not. But that isn't how it. But that isn't how it read. Yeah, there was a little bit of confusion there. To be fair, our because of the difference in time zones, our opponent was, if I'm not mistaken, our opponent was playing off a different time. But yeah, it was the channel effect. So yeah, our opponent swung with the Alsate unnecessarily as well. That was pretty much writing on the wall at that point. So we dropped the Spire Patrol, locked down Daxos. Opponent says good game. And then we go on to top 4. And now this was the match that ended it all for us. At first I saw this, I was thinking, okay, what Dimir effect are we looking at again? And then as soon as our opponent, well, that did not really tell us much either. So we were chugging along quite well. I was feeling really confident at this point. And then the moment of disaster, I saw the white and I realized, oh my gosh, it's the one deck I've been dreading. Opponent also did have the Jwari Disruption as well. Well, I ran it, so did our opponent. And the Whirler Rogue pretty much confirmed it. So I now had a Soul Herder, but I wasn't really getting back much. I was bouncing the farmhand over and over again to keep hitting our land drops here. We also had the Fading Hope in case of emergency. But here we see our opponent first have a Kabira takedown, so I had to fire off the Fading Hope. And they had the Jwari Disruption to back it up as well. So, well, at least we had the second Soul Herder, so not too bad. In hindsight, the correct play for me here was to just lock out the Whirler Rogue right away. I probably thought I had one more land drop to work with. I did not. So I went for the Touch the Spirit Realm. So we did save our Soul Herder, but now they have their own Soul Herder, and now I have no interaction to take out their Whirler Rogue. So in hindsight, I probably would have been better off losing my Soul Herder in that case. Actually, no, and now Lumbering Light Shield to show us that their last card was a Fatal Push. And yeah, the writing was really on the wall here. I kind of pushed on a little bit more. I thought there was a little bit of hope for me on this end. But let's be fair. I did not have any of my flyers. I was already taking 4 damage, then 6 damage. Yeah, then they had the Fatal Push. It was kind of over at that point for us. And this is where I noticed that, yeah, my sideboard was really bad here. The Empyrean Eagles really did nothing. I really needed to have more removal options. Our opponent running the Kabira takedowns as alternates probably was a lot better than just me running 7 planes. I could have easily cut 2 of those planes for either Kabira takedowns or Sajiri shelters. That said, this was the closest I went to going all in. I put in as many Watcher of the to see if I could line up the flying attacker plan. But unfortunately, it was not meant to be. I'm going to spoil it right away that I pretty much lost this one. But how I lost is actually quite interesting at this point. First things first, we do have to wait for our opponent to finish the sideboard. And I'm actually already playing this at 2.5 speed. So with our opponent taking that long, I realized, yeah, they knew what they were doing and we did not. Then again, so I did bin the Dovin's Veto. That was going... It turns out that we were going to kind of need it. And also the delay was actually a big advantage to our opponent here in the sense that they did not have to play stuff right away. And it informed them on their decisions. So with that, their Dawnbringer Cleric incidentally taking out Spirited Companions. So slightly miffed on that one, but we did have some options there. Opponent did have a Soul Herder, so we knew they were gonna on the reset plan. Again, this is where I made another mistake. Opponent went for the Blink. I used to touch the Spirit Realm, but the correct play there was to... But the correct play was to actually just let it go. I needed as many of the removal effects as possible, and the fact and basically there's a term for this in chess. It's called undermining. When you're for when you force opponent with limited resources to make a decision to use one or the other, it means they can't use both. And now that we're staring down double Soul Herder, right? And this time I actually made the mistake of that was a technical mistake. I should have waited for the Dawnbringer Cleric to come back. Yeah, but though I will admit that surprisingly enough, I did not die right away after this one. I could have easily conceded right away after this point, but we we still had a few outs there. That's what I believed we had. And we're throwing one more doggo into the fire. So I decided to go for Watcher into Falcon Abomination. Well, was also kind of concerned what our opponent might have had here. But also do take note. Look at the toughness of our creatures. This was going to be very relevant. Opponent drops yet another Dawnbringer Cleric. I decided, yeah, I did end up trying to protect it one more time. Opponent actually very satisfied to stay back, which actually makes sense. If you're not in any real trouble, you're like what, gaining 4 life a turn, and I still have to contend with your big Soul Herders. Now, this was also another unfortunate aspect here. Though let's take a look. I think I was able to dodge it once, but I did make another technical mistake here. So our opponent had the Golden Demise, but we had the good fortune of having Dovin's Veto. This was already a warning. I should have already covened the Ambitious Farmhand. I already had the PT at that point. I think I got greedy because of what I flipped up after the Spirited Companion. Yeah, I got really greedy. I hit an Elite Guard Mage. And I hit the Watcher of the Spires. That one was super unnecessary. I did not need to do that. I think I was kind of digging for it, but yeah, as soon as our opponent told us the good game, that was when I realized I done goofed up. And here we go. I still have an Elite Guard Mage at that point, but that was not going anywhere. The Fatal... Oh, our opponent did goof up the Fatal Push, but it didn't really matter at that point. We were not getting out of this one. So there we go. It was a little bit of an ignoble end, but I can say it was all completely my fault. I decided to show the desperation, swing, cast Fading Hope, see what I could hit off the top, and it was a whole lot of nothing. And that was a little bit heartbreaking, but in the end, I was actually very happy for both Alan, that aka Alpha Gaming, the aka the pilot of Esper Blink, who took me down the road. I was happy he made it to the finals. I was also happy for the eventual winner of the finals, Joni. Um, do stay tuned to this channel. I will actually be linking a final interview with both Joni and Alan. They actually had very profound insights about this event, about Historic Artisan in general, and basically a lot of things. So it will be a very interesting vid once I get it posted up. But final thoughts, I probably should get over my fear and just go Esper. Probably the same thing Alan did. He in You would have seen it in the last vid that he ran actually a lot of instant speed interaction. That's probably one of my mistakes here. I kind of ran a little bit light on that one. I probably would be looking for more flash effects with ETBs. That would be a very good way to get get some extra interaction that way. I probably would eventually take the dive into Esper as well. One card that I definitely forgot. If I can learn how to spell it properly. Circuit Mender. This is actually the best card to exile. It enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life. When you exile it, draw a card. It's kind of similar to Elite Guard Mage, except if your opponent hits this with a removal spell, you still get the card. So it's not. So this would have been a very good middle ground creature effect. I probably should be also looking into more effects, but I would agree in running into black. But that said, I have no regrets running this deck. I actually entered the competition. I did not have very high hopes. I was thinking, okay, I would just do decently in group stages. But making it to top 8 and eventually semis, I'm actually quite pleased with the results. So, but again, many congratulations to Alan and Joni. Many thanks to all who participated in the tournament. You guys all made it a blast. And that's going to be it for this episode of the Magic Arena Run. If you like what you saw, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Turn on notifications and whatnot. I'll also be linking other people you should probably follow if you're into more tournaments. Actually, as of this video, Historic Team Brawl Tournament is running. I think they already closed entries, but it'd be nice to follow. I'll put the link to Onyx Facebook and or the Discord. See how it goes. But that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope to see you guys again next time. Take care. God bless. Stay safe wherever you are. Have a great week, everyone.